Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Amazing had threats, so we had to wait backstage for a good 10 minutes. So blame Amazing. I do not negotiate with terrorists, but
That's right.
yeah, American, goddammit. So good to see you, Digger. How are you?
Hello. Oh, I'm fine, thank you. It's
Yeah,
a beautiful day.
yeah. I've come down from my, Trump hatred. Not
Yeah,
Trump hatred, but my hatred of what's happening to Trump. Um, so I still think they're gonna eliminate him.
yeah,
Um,
me too.
yeah,
Oh,
unfortunately,
shoot, amazing, you're right. We did. We did
I
bow
did.
down to the terrorist.
Finally gave in. But but we put up a valiant fight. We
We
didn't
did.
we didn't just roll over and die like we
Yeah.
you know
We complained a little bit before you stuck it in us.
exactly exactly. That is such a God damn. I'm not gonna touch that. Anyways, um, other than that, shit. Now you completely sidetracked me. I don't even know where I'm going.
Your Trump
Um,
anger. You're down from your Trump anger. I
oh
know that
yeah,
you're just about going on vacay soon, so that's got to be making life
yeah.
easier.
Pretty excited. So, gonna be a long drive.
Yeah.
Um, long drive. About 7,000 miles round trip, I think we figured out. So,
Mhm. Well, I'm envious. I always wanted to do a road trip from one end to the other of North America.
yeah,
So
we've
you're
done it.
basically doing it.
Well, yeah. And we did the American Southwest the other a couple years back. The goal has always been take my boys to all 50 states before they before we're not cool anymore and they go off to
Right.
college and do their own thing. So
Yeah.
we're getting there. We're getting there. We're gonna be pretty close after this. I think we're down to something like 12 after this. So we're making
Nice.
progress. Um but yeah, no, I'm pretty excited and it could not come soon enough because the world is just a nutty place. And yeah.
Yep.
So other than that, I thought of some things regarding kind of this whole system and um kind of what we've been covering here. And I think that so here's my concern. My concern is that this whole Trump thing is just kind of bullshit, and he's just doing it like there's intention behind him doing it, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like this is all part of the plan, and the way that he's been able to raise and fundraise off this and that kind of stuff. Um, I don't know that I'm terribly far off. So I'm wondering if he's part of this, this whole kind of beast type system. If he's more of it than I originally anticipated. Like, is this all part of the plan? Is this all part of the game? Are we
I think
being
so.
duped or played by
I
Donald
really
Trump?
think so. I think he is just working for or playing on a different team than say your Clintons, Bidens, Bushes, you know. They're on different teams, but I think Trump is a part of it as well. The fact that he recognized Jerusalem as the capital um,
Yeah.
was huge, huge, and the fact that his seed money when he first started out came from the Rothschilds,
Yeah.
that's kind of damning. So that's why I'm of a mind that if he does manage to make it in and become president again, it's because he's in there too. He's just playing for a different team.
Right. And that's always been my thought is if he's compromised, he's going to make it to the election. If he's
Yeah,
not, then he won't.
he's dead.
Um, yeah.
They can't let a man, if he is the person he claims to be and he portrays himself to be, they can't let a man like that become president again. He is the most dangerous person in the world.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's a bit of thought to. There's a bit of concern that maybe he isn't, and maybe this is all part of the. Maybe this is all part of the bigger plan, bigger game, and how to how to get ahead by dividing people, and that's my concern. The fact that he's raised, what is it, 200 and odd $1 million now for
Yep.
conviction, and I don't know. It all just seems like it might be kind of a game, and that sucks because I've always been a fan of Trump. I don't agree with everything he does, but I think he does more good than bad. And but there's concern now. There's concern with, damn, he's everybody's darling. I kind of like
Hmm.
him more as, somebody that everybody took shit on, relatively often. Um,
Yeah. But that just makes him look like the underdog. So there's a reason why you feel like you want to like the guy, right?
right, right.
But
So
I think honestly, um, this is totally in my honest opinion, nobody but me, but I think Trump is a relatively decent dude,
mhm,
but he was born and raised in the globalist community to be one of the darlings of the globalist community. I know that he is in very, very tight with people that I wouldn't trust, you know, with anything. And I
yeah,
think the only thing that I think he loves America, and I think he figures the team that he's on is the one that's going to win the globalist game. And I think that he expects to win that game, and then he can make sure that America is the first and foremost leader of the globe.
but you still think he's playing the game.
Oh yeah, he wants the one world. He wants the new world order. He just wants America to be in control of it, at the absolute head of it.
Okay, that's interesting. I I don't know. I mean, is that the worst thing for? So he's playing the game, but he's kind of on Team America, I
He's
guess.
Yeah, he's playing the game, but he has a soft spot for his home country. And
Yeah.
I think he looks at America's history and thinks, rightly in my mind, that America is positioned to be the head of the globe, of the entirety of the world. And I think he
Okay.
wants to make sure that America is that.
Gotcha. I I mean, if we're gonna have to live under the system, I'd rather have America as number one. But
Me too. Me too. And for all that the horrible World Bank has done stuff to everyone, um, that's the people in control of that World Bank are the ones backing him, which backs America, which means that by default Canada's safe.
Big Brother's there
So,
to protect you. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, in all reality, the world needs to stop. And I get it. There's so much power in controlling the world or controlling a portion of it, but the world needs to just figure its own shit out and let America just be America for 5 minutes.
Yep.
Um, I think that's the ideal situation, at least for us. But um, what do we? I don't think we're ever going to see that. Like, it's going to continue to be this ridiculousness and continue to be where these leaders, like, they're all bad dudes. I mean, I think Trump is a decent guy, like,
Yeah.
but I think he's still a bad dude. Like, you don't
Yep.
get there by being a fucking choir boy. Like, there has to be some kind of ridiculousness to you, or some kind of some kind of that ilk of person,
Mhm.
you don't get that far unless you're
Well,
playing for that team.
and
So
like I said, he was born and raised into this globalist family,
mm,
right? He is not one of us. He never
right,
has been. He was born and raised into the same community that held the Kennedys, um, the royal families, all of them. Like he grew up in that community. So from birth, all he's known is this is the goal. We need to get to the point where it's one government for the entire world. Um, and that's it's ingrained in his person, right? Like a rich kid is always going to be a rich kid. He might be a nice rich kid, but he's
right.
still going to be a rich kid. So he grew up thinking and feeling and acting a certain way, and it's just ingrained in him. And I think that's what Trump is. He loves America. There's no doubting that. And
Right.
he really wants to see America succeed on top. Um, that doesn't mean he's not still a globalist. It doesn't mean he's not still having done bad things to, or found out other people's bad things in order to get where he is. You know, he's
Yeah.
he's just a rich kid. It's not his fault. He he was raised that way, and his parents were raised that way, and their parents were raised that way. This is generational. These are people. I mean, look at Bill Gates. Um, his family has generational wealth as well, and they have always been, well, not always been movers and shakers. They're not like a royal family or something like that, but they were born into a certain society that has certain understandings about how the world works.
Yeah.
So, you know, Trump's got a good heart in there. Gates has not got a heart at all in there, but they're both still from the same community and they've both got the same worldview.
He's probably got a heart left over from lunch
Well,
somewhere.
maybe.
Bill Gates eats babies. Um,
Yes.
and that's not the worst thing he does to them. But anyways, yeah, I I don't know. It's so every time I talk about this, like I know that it, there's your message is like we win or we're gonna figure it out or that kind of deal. But it's just so damn hard. Every time we talk, I'm like, oh, shit. Why don't we just give up at this point? Because it seems kind of counterproductive. Like we don't have
Because
a shot in hell.
giving up is what guarantees that you're not in heaven at the end of the day, I guess. I mean, that's like a really broad, horrible statement, but I think at the end of the day, the people who will be in heaven, if that's the correct ending, if that's how it's going to go, that's my belief, not everyone's so. So if my belief is correct, I think everyone who fights the good fight, does the right thing and cares for people, um, it's an innate thing knowing right and wrong. You can tell when you're hurting something. And
Right.
I think people who give up on this world because it is pointless. But we still have to try. We have to fight for good. And I think giving up on trying to fight for good is what's going to exclude you from the bright, shiny new world, just as much as being evil will. I think that's where the difference is. You can't give up hope. You've got to keep being good and doing good and loving others, no matter how shit the world is, no matter how crap your life looks in the moment. It's the
So
being a good person anyways. I think that's the thing that's going to do it.
So does it matter that we win, or is it just that you put up a fight? Because it seems disingenuous, because realistically in this world, and this goes for the Trump thing. Like, I was really pissed off about the Trump thing, but trying to keep that, yeah, we can, trying to keep that, not trying to call for the next insurrection was my goal.
Mhm.
And I think I achieved it. But like, because I really wanted to at the time. Time to reflect, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But is it, if we don't win, like, we are hella overmatched? And somebody responded to one of my videos and was pretty upset, because
Mhm.
what do you do? They said something to the effect of, "What do you do? You just give up at this point?" And that wasn't my message at all, or the intention of my message. It's just, we are really far behind, like really far behind. Um, and I don't know what the answer is to come out on top. So that's my concern. I don't know what on top looks like anymore. So is it the act of doing, or is it just you put up a fight so you're good? You know what I'm saying?
Well, not exactly. Like Linda's saying, your good deeds aren't what get you into heaven. You love the Lord and you accept his gift for you is what gets you into heaven.
Okay.
Now, my my understanding is that he's a little bit more lax. Um, if you love life and you love people and you do good, um, if you haven't heard about him, if you didn't get introduced to him, he's not going to hold it against you. I think the fact that you are a good person, um, working your hardest to do good things and be of good use in this world. Um, I think he's going to want you there. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, because you're not saved by deeds. You are not. It's by your faith in God, and I guess for non-believers, I guess it would just be your faith that I don't know. I don't know. I'm
I
talking
like.
out my butt, and I don't know
Well,
because I recognize that, yeah, it's not a matter of your good deeds, but what happens to someone who hasn't had a chance to meet God, not physically, you know what I mean? If someone
yeah.
hasn't
Yeah.
had a chance to hear God's word and to read God's word and to get to know who he is, um, did they just automatically get left out in the cold because they didn't get to meet him, even though they've been a good person with a good heart all their lives? Like, I don't see God saying, "Nope, sorry, you can't come in," even though you were a good person.
Well,
Um,
God wouldn't say sorry because he's not Canadian,
well,
but
he
yeah.
wouldn't say sorry because he's not Canadian. You're right with that. But I don't think he's going to say no to anyone if they haven't gotten a chance to know him and meet him. Um, almost everyone in the world has heard, yes, but almost everyone in the world has heard versions of him. I think when he said, he will come again, once everyone in the world has had a chance to hear his word, that means know him, know the Bible. Um, just having heard about some Christian God isn't what he meant, I think. And again, I don't know. But I kind of thought that warning was that everyone would have a chance to meet him, through the word, through the Bible. Because if
So
every
here's the
Joe Blow hears the word God, but never hears anything else from it, but is a good person who follows the commandments, even if they don't know that the commandments exist, I think that person will be in heaven.
Okay.
You know. If you're
So
following
here's
the commandments, it's a moral thing. I think it's something that it's an innate thing that you are born with, knowing good and evil, even if you don't know what it looks like per se. And I
okay.
think if you live a good life that follows the commandments as much as anyone who attends church every week and all of that, I think you're still going to end up being there. It's not your fault for not having read the Bible, especially the way the Bible's been maligned over the last 100, 200 years. Okay, Linda's saying people who honestly have not heard are judged on a different basis. Yeah,
Okay.
here in America, we've all had the chance. The message is all over the place, including YouTube.
So here's my
Okay.
here's my issue with a lot of it. So it's not even the message, it's the whoever he picked as a messenger is pretty terrible because so I have a problem with humanity because humanity's at times can be just
Shitty.
horrible.
Yeah.
Just new levels of terrible. Um so I don't like there's far more value and far more of a realistic ability for me to be like, yeah, no, I I'm buying in. I'm gonna go down this path. If it came from somewhere other than the mouth of a human, because
Well, I guess
humans
that's
are
where
terrible.
faith comes in. Um, it takes faith to read the Bible and really honestly understand that though it was written by many, many hands and translated and written by many, many more hands, that at the end of the day, it is the word, the inspired word of God. Um, I believe that. And I believe no matter how many times it's been translated, um, because of my love of history, I've I've seen enough to convince myself that the Word of God, the Holy Bible, is the true Word of God. It was written by other people, but if you find they've found versions of parts of the Bible in so many places across the world and from so many different time periods, and yet they all always say the same thing. Now, people can take those things that they say and understand them differently, but
Mhm.
the words are the same. The thoughts, the meaning of those words is the same, and the fact that that hasn't changed is part of what convinces me that I can rely on it as an actual inspired writing, as coming from God.
Okay.
So I guess, yeah, it does. Because, and like Linda was saying, it's not your deeds that get you to heaven, it's your faith. It's your faith and love and trust in God that, no matter what happens, that he's there for you. Life is going to be shit and things are going to suck. But you've got someone in your corner who loves you and who's looking out for you and who's willing to forgive you the worst things that you ever have or ever will do because he loves you so much. Um, and he's got it in control. So I've used history to realize that. Um, Everyone has to find their own way to believing in God, believing in this, in the fact that he will save us. Um,
Yeah.
I like to say flippantly, there's two sides. I'm right, and hopefully I was the best person I could be, and I get to go to heaven. Or I'm wrong, and there's nothing afterwards, and what have I lost? you know, What have I really lost by believing in a loving God? You know, even if it's not true, and when I die, that's it. It's over. You know, but the more I see in the world, through all sorts of different types of science, through biology, through history, artwork, there's too many things that have shown me that there has to be a creator, someone who started it all. And from that understanding in myself, I started researching different religions because I wanted to see, you know, who said what. And to me, it seems like most major religions, they're all talking to the same God. They're just all using different human traditions in order to talk to God, and they all, you know, have different ways that they think you have to be saved. And so what I did was I went to the Bible and put it with the Hebrew, the Torah, and you can see that, again, no matter where in history these writings are found, they keep saying the same thing. The idea behind it doesn't change. So I am at the point where I believe that the Bible is the correct version. So I try and follow the Bible to the best of my understanding. I call myself an SDA just because they seem to be the closest to what I believe, which is the Bible and the Bible alone. They have a prophet named Ellen White. I have not read any of her works yet. My dad has read all of her stuff in his own studies, and he said honestly he doesn't know. He just doesn't know whether she is an inspired writer or if she is just if she's inspired by God or if she's just got a really deep understanding of the Bible from her own self. So I'm not overly concerned about her one way or another because I've got the Bible. And it says the same thing as the ancient Torah says, as all the ancient works. It all says the same thing. So, and then all of us have come in and you know, thought of different ways to interpret them, and you know, that's where all this has come. That's why we're here now, and why we have all these different religions who seem to be talking about the same God, the same creator, and yet we all worship so differently.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing. Should it be, I guess, does there have to be some continuity with stuff, or can it just be, you know, the same, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like the fact that there's so much variation and so much difference from person to person, and you know, different religion to religion, and then different religion inside that religion, like it seems like to me that at some point there has to be like the who's right portion of it. And we've talked about this before, and you're not a like I have to win to, like there's not a downside in your opinion, if I said that correctly.
I mean, there
So
could be. I haven't looked at other possibilities. There are, you know, maybe hell does exist, but there is no heaven. Who knows? There's so many things, but yeah, I know there's a creator. There has to be. This world is too fabulous and intricate. So, but yeah, after you get to that point, I think that's why I did the research into the ancient writings, was because I wanted to see if the Holy Bible was right, because it has been translated a zillion times in different languages, and you know, different people with agendas of their own.
right.
But the fact that the writings are the same throughout history and language and people. That's what led me to believe that it is the truth, and that's why I use it alone. If I'm unsure about something, I have to find the answer in the Bible. And one of the things the Bible says is that any of these anything that you're reading in the Bible, you can find other witnesses for it in the Bible. So the Bible will never say anything that goes against anything else within it, right? It's not going to go against some of its beliefs just to make a different point. Everything stands up for itself. Oh, I'm losing my
No, you're good. So, sorry, and
No,
if
go
you
ahead.
had another.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's, I guess that's always been my concern, is because there's so many people that are so jealous of they have the right way and their way is superior and their way is king, and so on. That man is very, very fallible. I mean, we're human. Like, we
Yeah.
make mistakes, all of us. So it's concerning that, I don't know. So that man made a mistake. Somebody made a mistake, and then uh maybe we're really far off, and following the fakeness. I'll just say fakeness because I don't have a better word for it. It's not what I mean, but
Yeah.
following the fakeness of the Bible is the ultimate sin, and that's what's going to cause your downfall. That kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
that.
Well, if that's the case, I'm willing to take that chance.
Yeah.
And I guess that's part of it too, is you have to be strong in your faith, no matter what religion or deity without a organized religion. You have to be strong and sure in your faith in this God that you have belief in, right?
Mm.
So I guess if you're at that point where you believe strongly that this creator exists, then you are also going to believe in whatever teachings or whatever come with it. I think Christianity and the Bible, we're lucky in a way because we're at the end of the Bible. Like no matter how close we are to the second coming or how far away we are from it, we can all agree we're in the end of the Bible. And because of that, there are all sorts of prophecies that were made in the Old Testament and in the New Testament that we can go back and fact check. As humans, we love the fact check, right? Fact check. We need to be sure that things are correct. And the great thing for being at this end of it is we've got all these different things to fact check, and they all fact check true.
Yeah.
Right? Like he even called, he had one of his prophets name a king, a Gentile king who was going to show up 150 years after this prophet's death. But God told the prophet about this king that his name was, oh gosh, and see, here's the thing with the names, but I think it was Cyrus.
Okay.
I believe it was King Cyrus. And saying this is the king who is going to allow the children of Israel to go back and rebuild the temple. Yeah, okay, good. I was right. It is Cyrus. Haha. But yeah, so God told his prophet about this king named Cyrus who was going to come in and do these things 150 years after this prophet died. And lo and behold, all these things come to happen. And once this King Cyrus has been put in charge, once it's all happened, at that point, the prophet of his time, Daniel, comes in and says, well, yeah, see, God told us about you and to look for you all these years ago and pulled out the Bible and showed King Cyrus his name in the Bible. So it really it happened, and that is just one out of, I can't even imagine how many different prophecies have been have come true.
So that brings me to that transitions nicely into the next one. Why have we not seen anything in a very long time then? Like, it seems like it's
Anything
been
what?
like any kind of prophecy or any kind of really anything. Um, it's all from a time long ago. Like there hasn't been anything, and maybe there has. Maybe I'm wrong, but there hasn't been anything like in the last, I don't know, 50 years, maybe. Um,
Well,
30 years.
we don't necessarily know that there hasn't. Doesn't mean it. Just because we haven't heard about it doesn't mean it hasn't happened. But also, there, you can see throughout the Bibles, as you're reading it, there are times when there are a multitude of prophets, um, false and true prophets, and there are other times when prophets and miracle workers weren't near as common. I think part of it is the fact that we're so jaded. We forget that um, the medicine that we take is a miracle.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Yeah, that's a whole nother, but like insulin, for example, there are an awful lot of people who need that to survive. And that's a miracle. The fact that we found it and figured out how to make it work. Um, yeah. And the fact that there was something in this earth already that we would be able to use to make this to cure other people. It's, again, it's a divine, there's got to be some sort of divine plan, that there would be insulin and that we could create it to save people. It's a miracle. We've had it for so long, we don't think about it. Getting
Yeah.
in an airplane and flying somewhere, it's a miracle. We were not meant to fly. He didn't give us wings. So
Yeah.
just because it happens all the time, we kind of forget how lucky we are that we get on a plane and we're able to get off at the other end.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that. I think we've also done a lot to kind of squander, jeopardize, or we've got ourselves into a lot of things that we probably shouldn't have
Yeah.
with the medication and with the just, you know, substances in general and that kind of thing. So like I don't know. It just
It's
seems like every
double-edged
time,
sword.
yeah, every time you get one good, then there's seven bad to counteract that one good. And yeah,
I
that's
guess it's I guess it's kind of how you look at it. I was talking with a friend earlier today, and you know, I was really worried. I was really upset about um, what was going on, and I'm not going to bring it up. I don't want to talk about it, but I was
mm,
really worried and upset about what was happening. And then I took my clown pill, and I realized that it doesn't matter. Nothing really matters at the end of the day to me except what happens to me in my life. And having two friends argue and dislike each other, it sucks. Like, it's uncomfortable, obviously, but it
right.
doesn't affect my friendship with either of them, right? And I think at
r-
the end of the day, God is quite similar. Um, I love him. I'm
mm,
getting to know him better every day. And I have faith that he put us all here and he had a reason for it. And we have a purpose. And just because we're all fuck ups, he knows that, and he loves us anyways. So we have to do the best we can to be the best people we can be, uh, including all of our fuck ups.
Yeah.
We have to try and be the best person we can be, and then hope that whichever deity or non-deity we choose to believe in appreciates that from us. You know, like,
Yeah.
I don't think God would like me much if I went around killing, raping, and murdering. I don't think he would be very pleased with that. Now, if you're subscribing to the God of war, it might be different, right?
Yeah.
So once you decide who or what you believe in, at that point it's all about faith and trusting in that being that you believe in. And that's all you can do, is just have faith.
See, I think that's where my disconnect comes in.
Yeah,
Is
you
the
want to
faith
see it.
part.
You want to see some
Yeah.
proof. Yeah, I do too. We all do. Especially these days, it's all about the receipts, right?
Right.
But that's the thing with God, is when you read the Bible, and I'm starting to see this now that I'm almost finished reading the whole thing, and I'm rereading other passages with my study groups. You learn a little bit more every time you read it, and you pick up something else. And I just have to keep reading and studying and trusting that the words that I am reading, they fit into my worldview, and they fit into it fits into the science. Again, I hate saying the science, but everything I know about biology and chemistry and mathematics, it all works together. It all fits together. It's all a divine, well, not a divine necessarily is the right word, but it's all one big machine, and everything works together. And that is what the Bible talks about. And it shows you how things fit together. So that's how I'm able to have faith that I am believing in the right thing. You know, like, I could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong, and then at the end of the day, we all die and we're reincarnated as worms or bees or some such. I could be totally wrong. But I have faith now that the words that I've read are not wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't know, start reading. I know there's a lot of religious tombs out there, because the Bible ain't the only one by a long shot.
Yeah.
But it makes the most sense. It's common sense. It's logic. To me, it's the one that feels right. It puts everything together and everything still fits. There's no little awkward holes in the plan.
Gotcha. No, I can see the point. I'm not arguing the point directly.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot to that faith piece. That's the part that just is tough for me.
Yeah. I was lucky. I was born and raised in AA, so my entire life I knew there was a higher power. So again, that was my worldview. There's a higher power. My parents never named it for me. They left that up to me to find. But there's definitely a creator. There is definitely something that made all of this happen. So once I did the research and decided which creator I believe in, that's how I got my faith. So you, as a scientist and not having been brought up necessarily with there being a higher power in control of it all, I don't know honestly how you go about finding that faith. And that's kind of unfortunately, that's everyone's got to find it for themselves.
Right.
So,
I'm intentionally not looking at chat right now because I know Linda's going to yell at me. So,
oh, she said,
for
I don't want to
something.
live again. She said, I don't either. Reincarnation is a horrible, horrible thought. I can't even imagine.
I'm a fan of reincarnation. I think it would be I think it would be fun. But
Yeah, fun but horrible, because I'm not coming back as the pet of someone who treats me like I treated my pets. I'm gonna come back as a pet for someone who can't give a shit and forgets to feed me.
well, yeah. I mean, you're not going to get the easy way out. Like,
Well, yeah, I don't want to have to keep reliving this horrible, this horrible life in this world. I'd hate to have to keep coming back to this world as it just progressively gets worse. That's
yeah.
a horrible idea.
And it's going to continue to get worse.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Alex, you are definitely a higher power. Most definitely.
But on that, since we've opined for
An hour.
quite a while now, we should probably go ahead and pop into it now, right?
All right. Let's worship the sun together.
Sun god. So I thought of this when I was because there's a wide receiver in Detroit that's been part of kind of our resurgence, and his name is Amon-Ra or Amon-Ra.
Oh, yeah.
And so they started calling him the sun god, and I was a little freaked out by it, actually, like just a touch. Like, what the fuck? So
his parents, they must have been history buffs or something.
something like that. I don't know what the backstory is with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but yeah, his they call him the sun god now, so it's different.
Yeah. Well, it's a whole new connotation when you don't realize, or when you finally start to see the background, the root of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, but all right. Yes.
I saw that too.
All right, we'll get started.
Hamilton got way too many rays.
Well, it's hard to believe, folks, but this is the 16th hour of broadcasting in our series on Mystery Babylon. You're listening to the Hour of the Time, and I'm William Cooper. Ladies and gentlemen, what you have just listened to is a warning. For there is a war being conducted right at this moment, a war against the American people. It is now a shooting war, and the second battle is being fought. The first was fought in the state of Idaho against the family of Randy Weaver. The second battle is being fought by a brave group of men and women and children in a church known as Branch Davidian in Waco, Texas. They are fighting for their Creator endowed rights. They have committed no crimes. They know what the sound of battle is. They know what it's like to see their friends or relatives die in their arms or at their feet. They know what it's like to have wounded and be refused medicine and medical treatment. Oh, yes. We are at war, make no mistake about it. And if you don't believe that, you keep your eyes and ears open in the next weeks, months, and years. You will see it escalate across this country like a wild forest fire, out of control. And unless the sheeple wake up and listen and learn and act, I predict that there will be civil war in the United States of America, because there are many of us who will not ever give up our Creator-endowed rights, our right to keep and bear arms, the Constitution of the United States, and the Bill of Rights, without one hell of a fight. And what you heard at the beginning of this program, folks, for those of you who have never experienced war, was the real sounds of war. What you heard were real bullets being fired, real bombs being dropped, real machine guns killing real people. And taps at the end was a real bugle blowing real taps over real graves of real fallen men who were buried in Arlington National Cemetery. You see, many people have already died protecting what many of you are giving up. I, for one, will not. When they come for me, there will be another battle. I will not give up. And I don't care who wins or loses, because at the end of my battle, it will be just the beginning of yours. Do you understand what I'm telling you? You see, my whole purpose is to wake enough people so that no battles ever have to be fought, but we're already behind because 2 have already been fought, and more, I guarantee you, are on the way. Guaranteed, folks. Guaranteed. Because the more we allow them to get away with, the more they will attempt. I don't want a civil war in this country. I want to stop it before it even has a chance to start. And the only way to do that is wake up America. You see, if 200 million people stand up with their right under the second article and amendment to the Constitution, holding a weapon in their hand, and say, enough, we will not put up with this anymore, stop it now, get out of our government, get out of our cities, get out of our military, and stay out, that will be the end of it, and no shot will ever have to be fired. I guarantee that. But what do you think the odds are of that happening? Well, it's time, folks, to talk about our sponsor, Swiss American Trading Corporation. Now, if you've followed my broadcast for any length of time, you know that I've been bringing you this show, The Hour of the Time, mostly without sponsorship. In part, I've been very leery of allowing just any corporation or any business to buy time on my show, and my requirements are very strict. I'm proud, folks, very proud to announce a new alliance. Swiss America Trading Corporation and myself are committed to preparing my listening audience for the upcoming economic trauma. Many of you have asked me, what can I do to save my assets? What can I do to protect myself against the economic collapse that's coming? Well, folks, for over 11 years, Swiss America has been supplying over 10,000 clients with hard assets and constant information on how best to protect those assets. And for a limited time, interested listeners can receive a complimentary newsletter if you mention my name, William Cooper, the hour of the time, and ask for the information on protecting your future. It's called Protecting Your Future. So call, folks. Call this number. Write it down right now. You should always have a pen and paper with you when you listen to this broadcast. You know that. Write this down. 1-800-289-2646. That's 1-800-289-2646. Let me say it one more time for you. 1-800-289-2646. Invest the time it takes, folks, to read one of the most important publications of our times. Call 1-800-289-2646. Swiss American Trading Corporation, they have all of the investments that we have recommended on previous broadcasts, and they have many more. Some we don't recommend, but it's up to you to choose. They're a reputable company. We've thoroughly checked them out. We have talked to their clients, their customers. We've checked their background. We've checked with law enforcement agencies. And I'm telling you right now, these people will treat you right. If they don't, you call me and let me know immediately. Now, this is the 16th hour of our series on Mystery Babylon. Many of you have already made the necessary connections. You know what's happening, and you know who's bringing it about, and you know why. Some of you still do not. So we will continue. Manly P. Hall wrote this, quote, "The Serpent Kings," and notice that Mr. Hall capitalized the two words as one would do for a deity or for royalty when he wrote this, "reigned over the earth. The Serpent Kings reigned over the earth." It was these Serpent Kings who founded the mystery schools, which later appeared as the Egyptian and Brahmin mysteries. The serpent was their symbol. They were the true sons of light, and from them have descended a long line of adepts and initiates duly tried and proven according to the law, unquote. And the proper term is not Freemason, it's Freemason. It comes from the French, from the Knights Templar, and it literally means the sons of light. Another writer, Wilfred Gregson, informed his readers why Mr. Hall capitalized the two words Serpent Kings when he wrote.
It doesn't? What is it?
Well, maison is house in French, or maison, if he's turning it into two words. May is like might, and son would be sun, even though like even son isn't sun in French. So I'm not sure where he's getting that translation of Mason. I really don't, but it doesn't mean that in French anyways.
I mean, it could be just an error thing. People make
or
mistakes,
it might be like older French term that isn't used in the newer. I mean, I learned French immersion, but I did learn French immersion in Canada, so we got taught half France French and half Quebec French, and so that was always a lot of slang. And I may not. It might be something from like actual France French that I don't get, but it doesn't make any sense to me.
All right. Yeah, and I mean, there's different dialects and everything. It's like any other language. Like you can have different things. Doesn't mean it's wrong from a certain perspective, but might be wrong based on how you learned it.
What did he say it was exactly? What was his exact words?
I don't know. Let me go back. What was it, like 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Let's see.
The sons of light. Night, and the proper term is not Freemason, it's Freemason. It comes from the French, from the Knights Templar, and it literally means the sons of light.
Oh,
Another
light.
writer, Wilfred Gregson, informed his
I'll
readers
look
why
into
Mr.
that.
Hall capitalized the two words
Masan. It sounds like he's saying Masan, like
Yeah.
sun.
It's
more
not
than-
Mason, it's Mason.
Right.
But sons of light. Light is lumiere. So yeah, I don't know. I am going to look into it though, because it's piqued my interest. So that's my next little rabbit hole to travel down.
We both agreed with something he said now. See, it's not
There you
just me
go.
that disagreed. Did I say agreed? Damn it.
I know what
I
you meant.
Well,
Well,
I meant
yeah,
that
and I
other
mean,
word.
just because we're listening to this, I do not necessarily agree with or believe everything that William S. Cooper said or did. I think this is especially this Mystery Babylon is very interesting because it connects all sorts of dots that I've seen throughout history. I just didn't know how they connected. So it's
Yeah.
kind of the same way with the Bible. It connects so many dots that I had seen, but I had no idea how they connected. And the Bible's
Gotcha.
finally connecting it so that it makes sense, which is why I trust it.
Linda, I do not believe that you said any of those French words. So that would change my whole opinion on life. So I can't accept that. Sorry. All right, we'll continue.
Okay.
Serpent Kings when he wrote, quote, "One symbol of great prominence throughout all ancient civilizations is the snake or serpent, where it has symbolized divine wisdom," unquote. So Mr. Hall had reason to capitalize the words because he had discovered that the serpent represented divinity. Notice also, folks, that Mr. Gregson, even though he chose not to capitalize the word serpent, confirmed that Mr. Hall's use of the capital letter was correct when he stated that there was a connection between divine wisdom and the serpent. Mr. Hall, a 33rd degree Mason, made the same connection in these comments. Quote, "The serpent is true to the principles of wisdom, for it tempts man to the knowledge of himself," unquote. A serpent is often used by the ancients to symbolize wisdom. The symbol of the serpent has another concealed truth, according to Kenneth McKenzie, for he identified that truth in this quote when he described a brazen serpent. Quote, "It was a type of mediator and a promise of redemption," unquote. The word brazen, folks, is defined as bold or impudent, and impudent is defined as shamelessly bold or disrespectful. Now, you will remember that Lucifer was an anointed cherub in heaven who fell because he sought godly power. The story is covered in Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12 through 14 of the Old Testament. Look it up. It says this, quote, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will be like the Most High," unquote. Therefore, it can be safely said that Lucifer would be considered to be shamelessly bold and, of course, disrespectful. It appears that the brazen serpent could be Lucifer. Another author, John Anthony West, wrote a book entitled Serpent in the Sky, in which he also connected the serpent with wisdom, and he wrote this, quote, "The serpent represents intellect, the faculty by which man discriminates. There is a higher and a lower intellect. Thus, symbolically, there is a serpent that crawls, and the higher intellect, that which allows man to know God, the heavenly serpent, the serpent in the sky," unquote. The somewhat veiled worship of this serpent in the sky inside the Masonic lodges was alluded to by another Masonic writer, Kenneth McKenzie. For in his book entitled The Royal Masonic Cyclopedia, he wrote this, Quote, among the charges preferred against the Order of Knights Templar, for which Jacques de Molay suffered martyrdom, was that of worshiping an idol or image called Baphomet. It has been suggested that Baphomet is none other than the Ancient of Days or Creator. More cannot be said here without improperly revealing what we, meaning the Masons, are bound to heal, conceal, and never reveal. Unquote. So according to this Mason, the snake or serpent is somehow a symbol of the subject of the Masonic worship, and apparently this fact is the secret that the Masons cannot reveal to the rest of the world. A Christian minister, Reverend Alexander Hislop, wrote a book that included some discussion on the subject of serpent worship. And in that book, entitled Two Babylons, he explained that serpent worship was not something that is recent in time. It was an ancient practice. Quote, along with the sun, this symbol will be discussed later as the great fire god, and in due time identified with him, was the serpent worshipped. In the mythology of the primitive world, the serpent is universally the symbol of the sun. As the sun was the great enlightener of the physical world, so the serpent was held to have been the great enlightener of the spiritual by giving mankind the knowledge of good and evil, unquote. And according to the Bible, you know who gave man the knowledge of good and evil? Satan, Lucifer. He then discussed a coin minted in Tyre, the center of the ancient Phoenician culture. This coin was also the subject of an article in the September 1986 issue of the Good News magazine. It depicted a serpent entwined around a tree stump. To the left of the stump stood an empty cornucopia, and to the right a flourishing palm tree. The snake on the coin is the symbol of the powerful god whom the Romans called Aesculapius. The name means the man instructing snake, or the snake that instructs man, and the article then reported, quote, in mythology, Aesculapius was believed to be the child of the sun, and thus the enlightener of mankind. As the legend goes, Aesculapius was ultimately struck down by a thunderbolt thrown by an angry Zeus, king of the gods, and cast into the underworld, unquote. The tree stump, folks, represented the fallen god and his ruined kingdom. In the mythologies of many ancient civilizations, the image of a fallen tree was used to symbolize the cutting off of a great god or hero, someone cut off in the midst of their power. You see, the snake on the coin was shown twisting itself around the dead stump, exerting its power in an attempt to restore his fallen kingdom. The cornucopia is an ancient symbol of plenty, but it was empty on the coin. This has been interpreted as meaning that the abundance had been cut off because the great God has been cut off. However, folks, the implication is that the horn of plenty will return when the fallen God is restored to his rightful position. The palm tree shown on the coin is a well-known symbol of victory, so it appears that the coin was minted to depict the anticipated return of the fallen snake god to the world. And the Bible talks about a fallen serpent in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 9. However, in this case, folks, the snake is connected to another symbol of the serpent, a great dragon. Quote, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, unquote. Is the serpent worshipped in the ancient mysteries and a symbol in the Masonic ceremonies, a symbol of Satan, the devil? As has already been discussed, there is indeed evidence, folks, that this is the case. And once you have confronted the evidence and studied as much as I have studied, you will know that they are one and the same. Another symbol that needs to be analyzed is the star. On the page opposite page 124 in Mackey's encyclopedia is a drawing illustrating the symbols of Freemasonry. Included in the 20 or so Masonic symbols is a drawing of a shooting star. Now, it can be fairly claimed that a blazing or shooting star would be one that was on the move inside the universe. One of the directions it could move would be, of course, towards the Earth. If it was moving towards the Earth, it could be called a falling star. But we know that most falling stars are actually meteors and not stars at all. Lucifer, however, is a fallen angel, according to Isaiah, an Old Testament prophet who wrote this in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. Quote, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer?" Unquote. Now, folks, notice that Isaiah also said that Lucifer fell from heaven, and other parts of the Bible report that he fell to the earth. So it is conceivable that the symbol of the falling or blazing star could be a symbol of Lucifer. A variety of authors have used their writings to discuss the star as a symbol. Professor Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati, was one who explained what he considered the star to be a symbol of. Listen closely. Quote, "The flaming star is the torch of reason," unquote. Mr. Mackey wrote that the star, quote, "was a symbol of God," unquote. He then connected the blazing star to another symbol when he wrote, quote, "The blazing star refers us to the sun," unquote. And then he connected it with the secret initiation ceremonies inside the Masonic Lodge. Quote, "In the fourth degree of the same rite, the Scottish rite of Freemasonry, the blazing star is again said to be a symbol of the light of divine providence pointing out the way of truth," unquote. And Mr. Hutchins, the Masonic writer who has authored the recent book on Masonry, further interpreted the symbol of the star thusly. Quote, "The star as a type of the myriad suns that light other countless systems of worlds is an emblem of that Masonic light in search of which every Mason travels, the correct knowledge of the deity and of his laws that control the universe," unquote. Now, closely allied with the symbol of the star is the symbol of the sun. Albert Pike identified it with the worship of the past in this collection of quotes from his writings. And pay close attention. "The worship of the sun became the basis of all the religions of antiquity," unquote. Quote, "Thousands of years ago, men worshipped the sun. Originally, they looked beyond the orb to the invisible God. They personified him as Brahma, Amun, Osiris, Baal, Adonis, Malkarth, Mithras, and Apollo. Krishna is the Hindu sun god," unquote. Quote, "The Gauls worshipped the sun under the name of Belin or Belinus," unquote. Quote, "The sun is the ancient symbol of the life-giving and generative power of the deity. The sun was his manifestation and visible image," unquote. Quote, "The sun is the hieroglyphical sign of truth because it is the source of light," unquote. So Mr. Pike identified the sun as a symbol of a deity that should be worshipped. He chose to capitalize the first letter in the word, the S, as one would in recognizing the name of a deity. And if you've been listening to this series, you already know that, of course, it was. Albert Mackey repeated Mr. Pike's contentions with comments like these about sun worship. Quote, "It was the oldest and by far the most prevalent of all the ancient religions. Eusebius says that the Phoenicians and the Egyptians were the first who ascribed divinity to the sun. Hardly any of the symbols of Masonry are more important in their signification or more extensive in their application than the sun as the source of material light. It minds the Mason of that intellectual light of which he is in constant search." The sun is then presented to us in Masonry, first as a symbol of light, but then more emphatically as a symbol of sovereign authority, unquote. So, folks, the sun was a symbol of something that only the believers in the religion known as the ancient mysteries understood. These believers, called adepts, certainly knew that the people would not accept their mystery religion, so they had to conceal it from them. Don't go away, folks. We've got to take a short break. I'll be right back after this pause. So the task became one of creating a religion around a belief that they knew the people would accept because it would make some sense, at least as far as the adepts would explain it. But their basic purpose was to create a popular religion as a cover for their secret worship. The secret religion would be built around a belief in the sun. The sun would be a perfect thing to build a religion around because of its basic nature. It is very visible and has a very important role in man's life. It rises in the morning. It appears to be born and then sets during the evening. It appears to die and then appears to be born again the next morning. It also appears to wander in the sky, setting further north or south each night. It then returns back to any given position twice each year. So the sun appears to have a major birth or death twice each day and twice each year. It would, of course, be very easy for the adepts to explain to the people that only something bigger than mankind, a god, had the ability to die and come back to life. So the adepts would teach the people that they had to pray to the god, or it would choose not to return. They encouraged a worship of the sun so that it would return to mankind again either once a day or once every 6 months. Albert Pike confirmed this view with this explanation of why early man worshipped the sun. Quote, "To them," meaning early man, "the journeyings of the sun were voluntary and not mechanical," unquote. So early man considered the sun to be something that moved voluntarily. In other words, the sun did not have to return each morning. Man must have quickly determined that since the sun did not have to return, man should start asking it to return. For man certainly depended upon the sun for his life. Man certainly must have figured out just how important the sun was to his life and well-being, and he certainly must have determined that if the sun chose not to return, all of mankind would certainly perish. So it was an easy jump from a belief that the necessary sun was an entity that chose to move across the daytime sky to a belief that it would return only if man prayed to it to return. But folks, there's something even more interesting to be considered that Pike didn't explain with that comment. Obviously, to make the new religion work, the believers would have to be able to predict the movements of the sun. It wouldn't be too long before some of the common people would start noticing that the sun was neither an actual being nor a god to be worshipped, but something that moved according to precise laws. Now, if the common people figured that out, they would not need the adepts who had computed the sun's periodic cycles. So, to keep their power intact, they would teach the people that if they did not accommodate their wishes, they would make certain that the sun did not return. They could even predict, as their measurements became more sophisticated, the exact time and date when the moon would go between the sun and the earth, causing the sun to disappear. They could then fool the people into believing that they were the cause of the disappearance. They could then, of course, explain to the people that if they did not continue to pay them sort of tribute, they would not intercede in their behalf, and the sun would not reappear. To keep the minds of the common people, the sheeple, away from figuring out that the whole religion was a scam, the adepts would conduct beautiful and ornate ceremonies around the worship of the sun, and they would expect the people to pay them for the elaborate rituals. And to make their rituals valid, the adepts would always claim that the sun obeyed their prayers, thereby convincing the people of their need to keep the adepts around. The sheeple would continue to pay tribute to these adepts as long as they appeared to be successful. Now, folks, if the adepts knew that the sun was a symbol of something that the people would not support, such as a belief that Lucifer, the devil, was the god that they worshipped, they would have to continue with their charade so that the people would not decide to stop worshiping. Because if the sheeple figured it out, they would no longer support their activities. They would have to keep their beliefs from the people and conceal their secret worship in hidden symbols. So sun worship as a religion prospered. Mr. Hutchins discussed that position in his book, and I also discussed it in mine, Behold a Pale Horse. Mr. Hutchins says this, quote, "In the tabernacle, the brethren, clothed in black, mourn Osiris, who is representative of the sun, of light, of life, of good and beauty. They reflect upon the way the earth may again be gladdened by his presence," unquote. Mr. Pike connected the sun to Osiris, mentioned by Mr. Hutchins as worthy of being mourned. Quote, "The three lights at the altar inside the Masonic temple represent Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Osiris was represented by the sun," unquote. Mr. Mackey went a little further and informed his readers that, quote, "Osiris was the sun," unquote. In his book entitled Introduction to Freemasonry, Carl H. Cloudy, the author, himself a Mason, connected the sun worship with the ceremonies inside the Masonic Lodge. Quote, "The lodge sets him..."
So I have two questions with this one.
Okay.
One, so the Egyptians, obviously we've talked about them briefly, I think, in a couple episodes.
Yeah.
But when you're talking sun worship, you're talking Egypt, right?
Well,
Like,
not just
for the most part.
Egypt. For the most part, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it was during that time, or using that as a thing. So there's one, and I might have missed something here because I feel like I did, but so a lot of this is like, if we were writing an origin story for it, a lot of this, does it originate in Egypt, or is it like, is Egypt the start of it? Because I know it's
No.
instrumental in it, but
I think Egypt would be maybe more a place where the mystery Babylon took root and grew. But from what I know from my studies, in my opinion, mystery Babylon, it seems to go all the way back to Cain and Abel, because Cain killed his brother and he was marked on the forehead and sent away, and God said, "You cannot hurt him. Like, don't go after Cain and stone him or anything like that. I want everyone to see him and know that I love him," I think it was. Well, I can't remember the quote exactly, but the point was,
okay.
He left. So he's angry and jealous of his brother, so he kills him. And then not only does God send him away, punish him and send him away, part of his punishment is wearing on his forehead something telling everyone else in the world who he is. That's kind of embarrassing. That would make me angry. And I'm thinking that Cain would be the perfect next victim for the serpent. I think it would have been really easy for the devil to get in there and go, "Well, see, look what happened. All you wanted to do was give God your best offerings, and now he's punishing you, and your brother was punishing you, and what about if you do this?" Right?
Mhm.
So I think again, in my opinion, this mystery Babylon, this second religion in the world, started with Cain. And then same thing as I was saying before, everyone started off knowing, the same God. Just humans decided to find ways to argue about how the correct way of worshiping that God is. So I think the Mystery Babylon was there with Cain, and it just became all these different groups and religions and thoughts. You got to remember too, because in earlier series we went through like the assassins and whatnot. That was the history of the mysteries coming up through history before we get to the period of time where Egypt is now.
Okay.
Right? Before or sorry, no, that wouldn't be right. Egypt probably would have been where the assassins would have come from. Probably makes the most sense, because the assassins came up afterwards in places that like we now know of as Iraq and Iran. Right?
Okay. So that leads to another question. Where do I forgot the group. I had it and then I forgot it. I'm trying to think of where the other it'll come to me. Oh, Romans. Like, where did the Romans come into this? Because the Egyptians seem incredibly powerful in this whole thing. But we haven't heard a lot from like the Roman side of things. So were they just not as instrumental in this early days, or does he get to it later?
Honestly, I think the Romans were kind of like they were prophesied in the Bible.
Mhm.
Daniel actually, one of the kings had a dream and he needed it interpreted, but he thought, if I tell my people that I had this dream and this is what happened, then they can tell me whatever they want to tell me that the dream means. And how am I supposed to know that they're right? And so he thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them tell me what the dream was and then tell me what the dream meant. So you've got this king going to all his prophets and wise people going, okay, guys, I had a dream. I need you guys to tell me what the dream means. And they're going, well, okay, so what's the dream? You tell me. And the king goes, no. You tell me what that dream is. And then you tell me what it means. And of course, none of his people could do it. And he threw out an order to kill all the magicians and prophets and wise men, literally. And as the guy was rounding up the prophets, he happened to be knocking on Daniel's door. And Daniel said, well, that's not fair. You can't kill me before you give me a chance to find out. I need to ask God and ask him what this meant. And so he gets his reprieve and he goes to sleep, and his three friends, who are pivotal later on, his three friends pray all night, and he has a dream. He has that same dream as he's sleeping that night. So in the morning, he goes in front of the king. He says, King, this was the dream you had, and this is what it means. And the king knew he was telling the truth. So, I forget. Why was I telling that story? What was the question?
The question is, where do the Romans come into this whole picture?
Okay. So that's how he knew that Daniel was an actual prophet.
Okay.
Now, the Romans were talked about in that prophet, in one of those prophecies. The Romans were actually delineated in humanity's timeline. And so they do figure in, but when it comes to the mysteries and God as I understand him, they already had many different versions of gods that they were praying to. So when they were rising up and taking over all these countries, instead of trying to force their belief system on everyone else, they allowed these different places to keep their belief systems. And they just tried to work them all in together into something that kind of looked similar.
Okay.
Right. So the mysteries, the Baal worship, and the all of the Greek gods, the Romans knew about all of them. They also knew about Jesus, or sorry, God of the Jews. So they knew about all these different gods. They just they weren't particularly pivotal with the mysteries,
Okay.
per se. It was just a conglomeration of all of them because they picked up all the different religions and gods as they went taking over. So
Gotcha.
they absorbed everything and tried to, that's why Catholic Church ended up, or that's how the Catholic Church ended up bringing so many to them in the first stages, was they absorbed a lot of different pagan rituals. So they made it a lot easier for pagans to say, okay, well, this God isn't so bad, it's such a mishmash of different religions and different symbology. It's it kind of is what it's trying to do. It's trying to mix everyone up so that no one knows that they're trying to become their own god. They're trying to take control of the world, right?
So it's intentionally misleading so that
Yeah.
they can hide behind it.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. They use symbols. It's kind of, okay. Yeah. It's kind of like the LGBTQ whatever's taking the rainbow and using it as a symbol. Well, the rainbow was originally a symbol that God gave the world as a promise that never again would he flood the world like that.
Okay.
So that was God's promise to his people, that those kinds of floods will never happen again. They've been usurped. And now it's all about LGBTQ, even though that is like the exact opposite of what God is saying. So it's the same thing with these worshiping the sun god. They're the same symbols. They're just being usurped and used to mean different things, which is why like the Freemasonry is so secretive. Everything's a secret, and you don't get to learn one thing until you've made it up the that last rung, and everything's secret handshakes and nods and whatnot. It's all symbology to make sure to make sure you know who it is that knows what.
Right. I do have to say, great job working in Pride Month into the show, though. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I thought, maybe we can get away with it because Mystery Babylon is the rainbow. But yeah, I thought better bring it up and speak about it first. Just cover our bases, right?
Yeah,
and be glad
I'm
you're not in
to get
Canada.
canceled.
I mean, be disappointed that you're not in Canada because it's not just Pride Month, it's Pride season. So,
wow.
Yeah, all summer long, we get to celebrate Pride. We don't really do much about Canada and Canada Day anymore, but we sure do have our Pride for 3 months.
That's awesome.
Oh, it is.
You guys are so progressive. It's refreshing.
It
I love to
is.
see it.
It is. Yeah. You guys can take notes. We'll show you. But yeah, they thrive on the secrecy too, because it's all about, oh, I know more than they know.
Yeah.
Or, oh, he knows more than I do. I got to get to know this person. I got to worm into their lives. see what's going
Right.
on.
And it seems so damn narcissistic. Like, and again, I'm a narcissist slightly. So I get it. I get the narcissism bit, but damn. So the other thing is with the whole sun thing, like the sun is such I get how people were so enthralled with the sun because it's amazing. It's
Hmm.
truly amazing. And eh, if you want to know if an astrophysicist is legit, have him just ask him how the sun formed. And if he gives you like some bullshit two-word answer or tells you, something that doesn't make sense, then he's probably not a good one. But if he like spurgs out for like 3 weeks straight and talks to you about it and tells you ultimately that we have no clue and we're not even close to figuring it out, then
Hmm.
that's your guy. That's a good way to figure him out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
because it's amazing, and it's not crazy to see that they actually worshiped something. I mean, they didn't know the ins and outs of it. They didn't know about nuclear fusion or any of that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just such a unique thing. It's such an odd thing that it's it's understandable for people to be kind of enthralled by it. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, and I don't know. I guess I don't know why they were so in love with the sun forever, but maybe I'll catch a little bit more of the reason later.
Well,
But
like he was saying too, what was going on in Egypt at this time, um, they had figured out that the sun and moon, they have patterns, and they
mhm,
have patterns that you can follow. And they were also realizing that if the sheeple found out or figured out that there were patterns and whatnot, they were hooped. They were out of a job at best and murdered as liars or whatever at worst. So
yeah,
they needed to keep the sheeple in the dark, so to speak. Um, so they had to keep the people afraid of the sun and the moon, and make sure that they knew that these wise people could control it if you were nice enough to them.
hmm,
Because they were able to tell you when an eclipse was coming, or this, that, or the other thing. They could tell you. um yes, amazing. The Aztecs and Incas had the same hustle. I believe they were followers of the Mystery Babylon. I really do. They didn't know it as that, but the Aztecs and Incas, the Mayans, it's very reminiscent. The Mayans in particular, very reminiscent to me of Babylon. Um, who's to say that's not just the ancestry is Babylon, and they've moved forward through the earth, right? Because when the tower was torn down and everyone was made to speak different languages, God spread us all across the earth. Who's to say Babylon, um, and the worship of that God didn't go all over the place too?
yeah. That place is weird. The uh, you just said it, and I can't remember what you said.
Maya, the
Mayan,
Mayans, and yeah.
weird place. Like there's very few places on this earth that I've ever been, and Cheese and I have talked about a couple of these, but very few places on this earth that I've ever been where there's just a feeling about it.
Hmm.
And being down there in Mexico during, by that general area just is it there's a weird energy to it. And that's the same way, um for instance, like Area 51, Roswell, that kind of area was the same way. Like
It
there's
has a
just an
feeling.
eerie feeling to it. And that's another one that I've had the opportunity to go to that just felt different. Felt like something was,
Almost magnetic, like there was something that's changing changing the
I mean,
force, I guess.
could be. I I don't even know how to explain it. It's so foreign that I don't know exactly how to explain it. It's weird. It's an energy. It's completely different than, you don't get that just anywhere. There's been very few places that I've been to in my life that have had that kind of energy, and that was one of them. So, like
Interesting.
Gettysburg, same thing. Like same kind of.
Yeah.
There's just there's a feeling to it. There's an energy there.
Interesting.
So.
Yeah, amazing. Aztecs and Incas, with the same hustle. Do you guys remember the Anasazi? They were an Indian tribe, well known for being super friendly, and then they just disappeared off the face of the earth one day. Many, many, many moons later, archaeologists were doing some excavations, and I believe it was the Aztecs. My memory is wrong, though, so it might have been like the Mayans, but there was a tribe that should not have had. There was a tribe that did not worship the child sacrifice or human sacrifice at all, and they just disappeared. So that's the Anasazi. And they didn't know where they disappeared to, but it turns out that the Aztecs, I believe it was the Aztecs, came and they ended up in their excavations. The Anasazi bones were being found in their human in their waste bin for the humans after they'd been sacrificed. The dead bodies get chucked aside, and they were able to do some DNA or whatever tests and found that it was most likely the Anasazi there. So they were finally able to figure out how this huge tribe of friendly people just disappeared off the face of the earth. Yeah, it was very interesting. Turns out they were eaten by another tribe, and their bones laid there in a pit for years and years and years.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's got to be a bad way to go out getting eaten.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that it was a historical thing, it was so strange that this friendly tribe just disappeared.
Yeah.
There was a song that we played in band about it, which is why we all had to find out who they were and, all that. And then I just found out a couple of years ago that they figured out what happened to them.
Huh.
So, but they were eaten by people who sacrificed other people and children to gods, which is exactly what Baal worshippers or the
Bill
Egyptians, Bill Gates. But this is what the Mystery Babylon does. They have all sorts of sacrifice and the symbology. It all matches up throughout it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it started with Cain and it came through all the world because God spread everyone when the Tower of Babel was pulled down. And then I think from there, that's why we find, people in the Amazon, huge cities, that you'd never expect to see there. We've got the Mayan temples. We've got the Egyptian pyramids, and we have pyramids in other places in the world. And, what about Stonehenge? There's another big place that just showed up, and it has a feeling to it. Like you were saying, people describe that same sort of thing. Like there's just something different about being in that place. And there was an awful lot of paganism and sacrificial things done there too. So I think it's all just splinters off of the Mystery Babylon. It's the same with the Holy Bible and the God that is spoken of with the Bible. It's the Jews have that God, where Muslims are praying to that same God, Christians are. Think of all the many different types of Christianity there are. We're all talking to the same God. We're just worshiping him differently. And I think the
Right.
same thing happened with Babylon.
Hmm. No, I think it's interesting, and I think it's one of those things that I hope that one day we get to actually know the truth to it. Like whether that's afterlife or, Donald Trump decides to declassify all the documents, like he
I
said
was
he's
going
going
to
to.
say
Um,
declassifying documents would help a whole heck of a lot.
yeah. But no, kind of a joke, but yeah. So, um, I'm just curious as to. I'd like to know. Like, I think knowing would.
Well, my pastor likes to talk about after the judgment, when we're all in heaven and we've settled in to whatever that new existence experience is.
Mm,
He's hoping that he can basically act like going to a movie theater, only he can decide to watch whatever part of history he wants to watch, and it'll play out in front of him just like he's sitting and watching it in a movie.
yeah.
And I kind of like that theory. I think that would be really cool because I got all sorts of questions about all sorts of different things in history. And I would love to be able to sit and watch it like a movie and see what really happened and understand, why things went the way they did. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I really do hope that we can do that. We can watch ancient Babylon in the best of its times and when the tower came down. We can watch the Roman Empire begin and expand and die. You know, um,
Yeah.
about the Romans too. They had all these different gods that they worshipped, and what does everyone say brought down Rome? It was the debauchery. It was the lack of morals. Um,
Mhm.
and that comes when you're worshiping other gods, multiple different gods, or worse, thinking that you can become a god yourself and working towards that end. So it's, to
Yeah,
me, it
we're headed
just
that
looks like
direction.
Babylon. Yeah.
We're headed that direction again. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
quick. So all
Yeah.
right.
History theater. That's a good name for it. I like that,
History
Linda. Thank
three.
you.
Hold on. If I can talk, history theater. I like
Yeah.
that. It's not bad.
Yeah. So I can finally watch Joan of Arc, when she's having these brilliant fights and supposedly God shone his sunshine down on her and her alone and won the war for them. There are things that I really want to see. I want to see the first time we landed on the moon. I want to
Yeah.
find out for sure who's right, what
Right.
really happened. If they got through the Van Allen belt, how the heck did they do it? And how the heck did they forget how they did it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really do. I like that. History theater. That's what I want.
I think that we're going to be incredibly disappointed when we get to that point, though. Like, I think we're going to be incredibly disappointed with history. I don't think it's going to be as vibrant as we remember it or portray it, you know.
Maybe. Maybe
So,
by that time we will have our new um immortal bodies. We'll be living in a world with angels and other beings. Like, I'm sure I've said that before. From my understanding and reading of the Bible, there are most definitely aliens, but the earth has been on quarantine. Um,
yeah.
so the 24 elders that are supposed to be sitting with God, um, they're all aliens. They're all totally different beings. And then there's like 7 or 9 different types of angels, supposedly. So, if there's a lot of really amazing things that we're going to be looking at, and we may not have the time or care to look back. But I have always loved history, and from my perspective, I think that would be so cool. So cool
Yeah.
to sit back and watch.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I would want to see for sure. But all right, we'll get back into it. I think we're at
almost
least
there.
halfway, maybe.
Yeah. A little more than.
Oh yeah, we're a little better than halfway. So we'll keep going.
Meaning the initiate, upon the path that leads to light. But it is for him to travel the winding path to the symbolic east, unquote. The physical sun rises in the east, and the Masons explain that their search for light begins in the east. And notice that Mr. Cloudy capitalizes the word east, apparently in reverence to the spot where they believe that this God resides. The Masons tell the world that they circumambulate, defined as walking around the temple floor during their initiation ceremonies. Mr. Cloudy explains why this rite is performed. Quote, when the candidate first circles the lodge room about the altar, he walks step by step with 1,000 shades of men who have thus worshipped the Most High by humble imitation. Thus thought of circumambulation is no longer a mere parade, but a ceremony of significance, linking all who take part in it with the spiritual aspirations of a dim and distant past, unquote. And it is a historical fact that the Knights Templar also performed the circumambulation of their temples. And he further instructs his readers as to why this ceremony is part of their ceremony. Quote, early man circled altars on which burned the fire which was his God, from east to west by way of the south. Notice that the north is not included in the ceremony. The significance of that omission will be discussed later. But circumambulation became a part of all religious observances, unquote. In another part of his book, entitled Introduction to Freemasonry, Mr. Cloudy reported that this style of walking was traceable to the ancient religions of the past. And he wrote this, quote, circumambulation was the ceremonies of ancient Egypt, unquote. So this practice of the modern Masons is based upon the ancient pagan religious practices of the ancients. So the Masons are telling us that early man walked around in a circle because he was worshiping the sun. Then they tell us that they are doing it for the same reason. There are reasons that the north as a location to be visited in their walk around the temple floor is not included in their initiation rites, and 6 of the great Masonic writers have told us why this is so. Captain William Morgan offered his readers this explanation with this comment from his book, the writing of which he was murdered for. Quote, we therefore Masonically term the north a place of darkness, unquote. Mr. Mackey confirmed that statement in his book. Quote, the north is Masonically called a place of darkness. And Mr. Pike confirmed the comments made by the other 2 Masons with this declaration. Quote, to all Masons, the north has immediately been the place of darkness, and of the great lights of the lodge, none is in the north, unquote. And Kenneth Mackenzie added his confirming thoughts. Quote, the north was always esteemed a place of darkness, unquote. Mr. Hutchins became the 5th Masonic writer to confirm this detail, as he said this, quote, as in other degrees, the closing ritual provides a summary of the lessons taught in the degree. We hear in the West the eagles gather and the doom of tyranny is near. In the South, truth struggles against error and oppression. In the North, fanaticism and intolerance won. In the East, the people begin to know their rights and to be conscious of their dignity, and that the sun's rays will soon smite the summits of the mountains, unquote. Mr. Hutchins informed his readers that the North was where fanaticism and intolerance resided. What he meant by this and what the symbol of the North represents will be explored later. And the sixth Masonic writer who confirmed that the North was a place of darkness was Carl Cloudy, who wrote in his book entitled Introduction to Freemasonry, quote, "The place of darkness, the North," unquote. And the reason the Masons do not include the North in their rites is found in the Bible. In the Bible. The reason the Masons do not include the North in their rites is found in the Bible, in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13. Quote, "I," meaning Lucifer, "will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north," unquote. The God of the Bible sits in the north, and Lucifer hopes one day to acquire the throne of God for his throne. But until then, the north is a place of darkness. But while the north is an excluded territory, the east is the place of light and is to be revered. Mr. Hutchins tells his readers why that is so. Quote, "The east, the source of light and thus knowledge," unquote. Albert Mackey quotes Etienne Francois Bazat, a French Masonic writer, in his encyclopedia. Quote, "The veneration which the Masons have for the East bears a relation to the primitive religion whose first degeneration was sun worship," unquote. Rex Hutchins then tells his readers that the Masons deploy lights around the lodge room during the initiation ceremony for the 25th degree, called the Night of the Sun, and he writes, quote, "The ceiling should be decorated to represent the heavens with the moon, the principal planets, and the constellations Taurus and Orion. A single powerful light, a great globe of glass representing the sun, is in the south. In a physical sense, the greater light comes from the sun, and the transparencies provide lesser light. Symbolically, the sun, or great light, is the truth, and the lesser lights are man's symbolic representation of truth," unquote. Mr. Mackey further discusses this rite of circumambulation, as he calls it, in his encyclopedia. He says that the rite, quote, "exists in Freemasonry. The people always walked 3 times round the altar while singing a sacred hymn. In making this procession, great care was taken to move in imitation of the course of the sun," unquote. He then assisted the reader with understanding this practice in the Masonic temples. Quote, "This rite of circumambulation undoubtedly refers to the doctrine of sun worship," unquote. However, in another of the books that he wrote, Mr. Mackey directly states that the rite is connected to sun worship. This is what he wrote in a book entitled Manual of the Lodge. Quote, "The circumambulation among the pagan nations referred to the great doctrines of Sabaism or sun worship," unquote. Sabaism is defined by Mr. Mackey in his encyclopedia as, quote, "Sabaism, the worship of the sun, moon, and stars, the host of heaven. It was practiced in Persia, Chaldea, India, and other Oriental countries at an early period in the world's history," unquote. He then added this rather cryptic comment, quote, "And although the dogma of sun worship does not, of course, exist in Freemasonry, we find an allusion to it in the rite of circumambulation, which it preserves," unquote. Now one can understand what Mr. Mackey meant by that comment. The Masons do not worship the sun. They worship the sun with a capital S. So he was telling the truth, but concealing it in a symbolic language, for he wrote sun with a small s. You have to understand the symbology of the mystery schools, or you will never understand anything, dear listeners. Mr. Hutchins then volunteered the information that in the 12th of the 32 degrees, the rite of circumambulation is preserved, and he writes, quote, "In all the Scottish rite degrees thus far, the candidate has made 21 prescribed circuits around the altar. This degree adds 7 for a total of 28. And this practice, called circumambulation, is derived from the ancients and existed among the Romans, Semites, Hindus, and others. It is thought to have been a rite of purification. The sun was believed to travel around the earth. The initiates imitated the movement of the sun when they made circuits around the altar, unquote. Furthermore, dear listeners, in the ninth degree, other symbols of the sun are involved in the ceremony, and Mr. Hutchins tells his readers, quote, after the obligation is taken, the 9 candles of yellow wax are lit. Yellow is representative of the sun, hence light and knowledge. In the 10th degree, further symbols representing the sun are utilized according to this author. Quote, there are 3 sets of 5 lights. The wax is yellow, meaning knowledge, and also as the color of the sun represents the deity, unquote, a blatant admission that the sun represents the deity that they worship. Other clues that the sun and the serpent are both known symbols of the Masonic Lodge are given by the titles of 2 of the 32nd degrees inside the Masonic Lodge. The 25th degree initiate is called a Knight of the Brazen Serpent, and the 28th degree initiate is called a Knight of the Sun, with a capital S. There is another symbol of the sun inside the Masonic Lodge, the Worshipful Master. The equivalent of the president of the lodge sits in the east side of the temple, and we are told why that is. Quote, the Worshipful Master represents the sun at its rising. The senior warden, another officer of the lodge, represents the sun at its setting. And the junior warden, still another officer of the lodge, represents the sun at meridian, the halfway point, the Most High. Other individuals and organizations besides the Masonic lodges are also involved, folks, in varying degrees with sun worship, or with an acknowledgement that the sun plays a central role in their understanding of the nature of the world. Elizabeth Clare Prophet has been described as being a leader in the New Age movement, as she has written this in a newsletter she publishes called The Coming Revolution. Quote, the healing of the nations begins with the healing of ourselves. We must draw forth from the great central sun that eternal light with which we were anointed from the beginning, unquote. Adolf Hitler, I'm sure you've heard of him, the head of the German government prior to and during World War II, and who was directly responsible for the murder of over 50 million people, was also a sun worshiper. Very early in his life, he joined a secret organization called the Thule Society. And 40 years after the war, some historians are finally delving into its strange beliefs. 2 of these writers, Michael Bertrand and Jean Angelini, have produced a book entitled The Occult and the Third Reich. And one of their conclusions is, quote, in the Nazi cosmology, the sun played a prime role as a sacred symbol of the Aryans, in contrast to the feminine and magical symbolism of the moon revered by the Semitic peoples, unquote. The Nazi Party was the name of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the party that Mr. Hitler joined. It became the controlling party of the German government prior to and during the war. The Führer, German for leader in this case, meaning Mr. Hitler, saw in the Jewish people with their black hair and swarthy complexion the dark side of the human species, while the blonde and blue-eyed Aryans constituted the light side of humanity. Hitler undertook to extirpate, meaning to eliminate, from the material world its impure elements, to lead it back to glory. But sun worship, as the Masons point out, is not new. The Bible talks about it as well. Folks, Ezekiel was an Old World Testament prophet writing sometime during the period of 571 to 592 BC. And he tells about how he was taken by God to see a practice occurring near the temple. And this is what he wrote in Ezekiel chapter 8, verses 15 and 16. Quote, and he, the Lord God, brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and they worshipped the sun toward the east. Unquote. And Ezekiel points out that the Lord God considered this practice an abomination. There is another reference to sun worship in the Old Testament, this time in Deuteronomy chapter 17, verses 2 through 4, and then verse 7. And that reference reads as follows. Quote, "If there be found among you man or woman that hath gone and served other gods, and worshipped them, either the sun or moon, or any of the host of heaven, and it be true that such an abomination is wrought in Israel, so thou shalt put the evil away from among you." Unquote. So, folks, the God of the Bible has made it perfectly clear that sun worship is something that he does not want. He does not want his creatures practicing this. The Bible even went so far as to say in both instances that he considered the practice to be an abomination or an evil. But to show just how far this practice has invaded the Christian community, the following prayer was offered up at a recent funeral in a local Christian church. Quote, "Now you will feel no rain, for your mother, the earth, will fold her arms around you. Now you will feel no cold, for your father, the sun, will always warm you." Unquote. Sun worship continues because some Christian churches pray to the sun god in their church services and don't understand who they are praying to. Simply stated, dear listeners, the sun god that they were praying to is Lucifer. Lucifer, also known as Satan or the devil. Wakes you up, doesn't it? See, all the time you thought religion was something stupid, didn't have anything to do with overall world events, but you're wrong. It has everything to do with everything. Whether you believe it or not, whether I believe it or not, doesn't make any difference. If the people who have the power and are in control believe it, it will affect us all. Understand that, because that's true. Good night, and God bless each and every one of you.
That is exactly the point. Even if we don't believe this, they do. And
Yeah.
so we have to understand it in order to understand them. It's the same with Christian. If you want to understand a Christian, you've got to figure out what it is that their belief is, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, Linda, that's what I was thinking. If they're not praying to God or Jesus, they're not Christian. I'm not quite sure what he meant by churches that pray to the sun. I've never heard of that. But then he's in a different part. Oh, I can't quite remember where in the world or where in America he was, but I have a feeling that revivals were probably a thing when he was a kid. So that it might be something that he was seeing from one of those churches. You know, the ones that like to speak in tongues and get bitten by snakes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about California, but
No, although, well, maybe them too.
probably in California.
But yeah, no, all the tent revivals and stuff. I think that was more of oh yeah, I want to say like a Dust Bowl kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not certain because of course my brain is no good. It was good once, but it's aging at a much faster pace than I am physically, and that's just a part of my health issues. My brain is deteriorating faster than it should. So things don't necessarily, I can't connect everything. That's why names are so horrible for me. I'll remember the story behind it, but I cannot remember who said what and when.
It happens. I'm terrible at names as well. So, but yeah, like I don't know. It's interesting to there's still a lot. And what do we have? 25 more episodes. So
Yeah.
we have plenty of time.
Yeah.
So same
Yeah.
thing in
No,
Missouri.
it's really interesting because the further we get in, the more you're going to see the same symbols being repeatedly used by different
Mhm.
groups with different meanings, but a lot of the symbology is the same. Even
Yeah.
now, things that we use now, like the sign for medical doctor is still a staff with the snakes, right?
Right.
Climbing up. Well, that's from the Bible.
Yeah.
So, and we're still using those symbols. I don't think it had much to do with medical doctors when they were talking about it in the Bible. They were false prophets. I do believe who were being um, bad in that story.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, and again, I'm bad with names, but God told one of them to take his staff and strike it on the ground, um, and have what was it? No, that's when he struck a rock. That was Noah. Come on, my religious friends. It doesn't really matter, anyways. I'm going off into it, but yeah, the sun has been used time and time and time again, and it's always means something different. Well, it doesn't always mean something different, but it's used by different people meaning different things, and um, it's just yeah. Once you start to see, there's my thought. Sorry, holy Hannah, I got to stop doing a dab in the middle. All right,
Nah,
there's
it
my
makes it
thought.
better.
You'll start to see these symbols propping up again and again, and you can see just in the way that they're being used, uh, who they're subscribing to, which God they're um, thinking they're dealing with.
Gotcha.
Um, so yeah, it's like the rainbow. It's also a fun thing for these alternate religions to misuse and mock some of the Christian symbology. And then again, there's Christians have loved over the centuries to mock symbology of other religions as well. So again,
Yeah.
we're all evil people at the end of the day. We're all bad people. It's just, you know, do we know it and do we try to do better? Um, that's the basic thing. We know what's right and what's wrong, and we try and do what's right. And when we do wrong, we make amends for it whenever possible, um, and learn from it so that we can do better next time. And
Yeah.
after that, whatever God you want to say is in control it or none at all, I don't think it really matters. That's why we've got all these different Christian denominations. We're all praying to the same God, but we've got different ways of doing it. If we would just drop all of that, all the traditions of man, as it is called in the Bible, if we just get back to the basics, I think we'd all be a lot better off.
You'd get more people on board. I would be
Yeah,
far more likely if it weren't for, you know, all
yeah,
the rest of it surrounding it. So,
yeah.
but
Well, see, that's exactly it, Linda. God's working on us all until He brings us home, and right up until that point, it's up to us. He gave us free will, so it's our choice what we do with our time.
yeah, it
But
was a
we
bad
will
idea,
be
dude.
judged.
That was an
So
oversight.
yeah, well, no, because he didn't want mindless drones. He wanted people who loved him because they loved him,
Yeah.
not because they had to. And that's why there are going to be people that go to hell, or well, the eternal flame, or that's a whole nother thing. But there are people that are going to be going one way and other people going another way, And the reason not everyone is going to heaven is because we have the free will and we have to choose. You know?
Yeah. No, I get it. So, all right. I'm going sleepy time now. So,
All right. I always forget that it's so much later for you.
yeah, it's almost 11. I gotta wrap. Like, I have meetings
Zach,
all day tomorrow to get
to get ready
Hey,
for your
Zach.
holiday. Yeah.
Yeah, to get ready to get out of here. So
Wow.
tomorrow and Thursday are full up, so I can be done to go. So
Well, yeah, you need a good night's sleep.
yeah, need my beauty sleep so I don't scare people away. So
Well, that
you know,
too. You
but
got to rest your arms up if you're going to be doing all that traveling, all that
yeah.
driving. Oof.
Oh, I know so much.
It's
But
the best and the worst and the best part of family vacations was all of the time that you had to spend in the car together. We've got songs that my family to this day we made up like hand signals and movements for these songs in the car, and to this
oh
day
no,
we just have to do one little thing and we're cracking up. And yeah, that's the
it's
best
awesome.
of times. So enjoy the heck out of it.
Will do. So and when I get back, we'll continue. So.
Perfect.
But, ladies and gentlemen, I'm finishing up Detroit tomorrow before, like, the timeline portion of it before I take off. I promised myself I would do that. So that's gonna happen tomorrow, no matter what. And then, and yeah, I'll probably do one more thing before I skate out of here. But maybe I'll take you guys through my ridiculous Minecraft world that I've been building. Something, just hang out and chat. Like this thing is nuts. But yeah. So anyways, chat. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for watching. Hit like on the way out. And I'll catch y'all soon. Take care, everybody.